Hello, my name is Julianne. I'm an astrologer, and I want to talk about the third time's the charm, that idea. The reason it's come to my brain is because we have this really magnificent astrological transit that we'll be experiencing later this month of November on November 19th. And that is the transit, the very final time that the planet Pluto is going to be entering the sign of Aquarius. So, to very, very briefly recap Pluto, if this is your first time hearing about Pluto from my perspective, um, I draw generally from the paradigm of evolutionary astrology as taught by Jeffrey Wolf Green, which teaches and bestows upon all of us a great framework of astrological interpretation whereby the planet Pluto is seen as the ultimate baseline. The ultimate baseline in any one person's life, as well as the collective energies at hand. That ultimate baseline is a desire for something. It's a deep desire. It's really quite simple. It fractals out into various things such as power dynamics and love and money and any other way we are trying to work out who we are and how we know ourselves. But the deepest reference point of this human life, so says evolutionary astrology, is our baseline desire. Within the paradigm of evolutionary astrology, we consider the fact that one lifetime alone might not be enough to like make sense of the entire storyline of why you're up to what you're up to. And personally, as an astrologer, I don't spend a lot of time, really any time actually trying to unpack and discover what the past life of any of my clients are or my life. That's something that I believe the knowledge of past lives comes to us when it's helpful, but until then, it's not necessarily the most important, or rather important at all, of a storyline or a belief to hold on to. The idea with multiple lives is simply that what we understand as the limits of this life, when it comes often to the more subtle areas of life, our emotional experience, our spiritual experience, um, but sometimes our physical experience, we can just have a sense that something didn't start here, that we've known someone before, we can't really explain why. um, that is really the only that's the length to which I go with the idea of past lives, but I only bring it up here and now, because Pluto as a planet, which is what I'm really trying to focus on in this video, is like, when you isolate it, it really has nothing to do with any one of our so-called incarnations. It has to do with the essence of who we are as an individual, and also the essence of our collective time period. So what is an essence? Man, this one is hotly debated. I do not profess to unilaterally believe that a soul exists in the way that um, perhaps we've been led to see it in our mind's eye or in our inner knowing. Personally, I'm, in a pretty profound period of letting whatever the idea of essence is show itself to me in my life instead of me trying to define it or fit it into a box. this stems from several personal experiences I'm having, but it also comes from, for me, just logically, this idea of Pluto being invisible to our naked eye. And of course, we can use telescopes to look at it. But psychologically speaking, the Pluto position isn't something we are supposed to have to see. There's a beautiful koan in Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist text, which is the finger pointing at the moon. And the whole underscore of this koan, which you can look up, um, is pretty simply don't confuse the moon for the finger pointing at it, which is a very lovely introduction into the world of how symbols infinitely um, point to each other, and emphasis on the term infinity here. Um, what does the moon itself even point to or symbolize when we look at it in the sky or we look at it in a chart? Can reflect our core emotional conditioning, can reflect how we know ourselves, but where does that come from? Does it come from the way we were parented, or does it come from our soul, or is it a mix of both? But if it's from our soul experience, which soul experience does it come from? So the idea of the bottom line being Pluto in a chart is the way that I see it, and the way that I practice astrology is that it holds a poetic baseline for us, which is never something that we are meant to rest in or stay in. We're not in this human body. I personally believe we're not meant to be fully soul identified. We're meant to be identified with who we are, with our names, the name we give ourselves or the name we are given. We're meant to be identified with our stories on our own terms. And yeah, it's a really, the Pluto placement in the chart is extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary because it's this point where you simultaneously have to suspend your belief in what everything kind of rests upon, like, and that resting point being something that you actually desire. Um, but as I mentioned, it's not something that's actually very visible. And actually, when you think you can point to it, um, we often realize it's just another symbol behind another symbol, behind another symbol, behind another symbol, infinitely down. So much of the work of a human life, from my perspective, has to do with Saturn, has to do with um, time and space and reality and our physical bodies and everything that allows us to be in consciousness, to be forming words, to be even knowing how to articulate these truths in any type of abstract or clear way. You see where I'm going with this, which is not really anywhere so specifically other than to point us back to our own personal power. And within a lifetime, personal power is negotiated, it's exchanged. That is the entire point here. And we have to play it out. So at this point, maybe consider where Pluto is in your own chart. You don't have to go much further, even into aspects if you don't want to, but Pluto is a generational planet. So um, I've spoken about this in other videos, which I'll link below, but the Pluto placements by sign will roughly correspond with the different generations of humans we have alive on the planet right now. And also they will roughly also correspond to different within those generations, the cultural shifts and the things that happen. So Pluto is simply just a marker in time for the different generations of humanity and the different generations of human desire. um, that we come into collectively. The difference being within the individual birth chart, there obviously it's like saying, a millennial isn't going to have the same opinions as every other millennial. Obviously, we know that to not be true. And that specificity is what's reflected in the birth chart of any person or any moment in time. But when we look at archetypes uh, archetypally, like one archetype as an archetype to itself, and just understand the thematics of it in general, this is what we see with Pluto. The last thing I'll say about Pluto is that it doesn't care about us. It doesn't care about whether we live or die. It doesn't care about if it hurts our feelings. It doesn't care if it makes us so powerful. It doesn't make it just it doesn't it's not it's an impersonal, it's a transpersonal planet. It's so far out, and we really have to dig very deep and hold a very um, what's the word here? Almost detached lens to see it for what it is, or at least think that we can see it for what it is. Um, it's, Pluto is the archetype of the tower in the tarot. It's the archetype of DNA itself, also. You know what I mean? It's completely resting on where we've come from, and it also completely sometimes can rest on um, tremendous earth-shattering change that fundamentally changes who we are and our identity. So why this prologue? Okay, so since 2023, Pluto has been shifting in and out of the sign of Aquarius and into Capricorn, or sorry, out of the sign of Capricorn into the sign of Aquarius. It has been retrograding backwards back into the sign of Capricorn, spending time there, moving back into the sign of Aquarius. So if I have my information correct, this has happened 3 times since 2023. And I could be very wrong. I'm just rechecking my notes here. Um, yeah, okay, so it really was March, early 2023. Pluto entered Aquarius for the very first time in March, and since then it has moved back out of Aquarius and into Capricorn, and then back into Aquarius and out of Capricorn 2 more times. So um, we have been, in essence, since March of 2023, straddling a generational shift, a generational gap. A lot of people like to use the word like the future, the age of Aquarius, la la la. I was kind of into that a few years ago, but I'm just at this point, it's a generational shift. We are just on the cusp of a natural thing that happens every 14 to 20 years. It's a little bit of a irregular cycle. But in any case, Pluto shifting signs is just simply the reflection of a generational shift and everything that comes with that. So like, I say that naturally, but it's huge. Um, there are a few key differences that we see between Capricorn and Aquarius. The primary difference is that Capricorn is an earth sign and that Aquarius is an air sign. Pluto in Capricorn changed our earth, changed the desires we have for the earth that we live on. It changed how we relate to the structures that are built from our earth and how we have decided as a humanity to erect structure from the earth that we live on. This is hundreds, if not thousands of years in the making. definitely hundreds. Pluto cycle is around, gosh, 370, 80 years, if I'm, again, not getting this wrong. Um, and so it has literally been centuries since we had Pluto moving through the sign of Capricorn, where it was doing its long-term generational work to focus all of us in on where the Earth itself had had a desire for something. And the way that we were brought to the attention of this desire of the Earth is through power struggles, through the abuse of the Earth, through the abuse of these long-term structures, which are for the most part patriarchal, most part have to do with the archetype of what's been crystallized and maybe what has been crystallized for too long. Pluto is what can come in and simply shatter it. It can remove it. It just, what we're going to need for the next Pluto cycle has to be changed now. So that's Capricorn. It's a very physical shift. In Aquarius, Pluto moves into our minds. Pluto is coming to spend the next 20 years in the sign of Aquarius, where it will bring all of our attention to the power of our minds. In the same way, it brought our attention to all of the power that was existing within the Earth, within the structures of our Earth. Pluto in Aquarius focuses our minds on the power of our minds. Aquarius is a sign of the intellect. It is the sign of group think, as well as the kind of cosmic expansion of thought, if you will. It is the edge of what we know. That's Aquarius. That's why Aquarius and its ruling planet, Uranus, has always been known to be the planet of revolution, of technological innovation. It's because it's where we are at the edge of what we have been able to bring down from infinite consciousness and bring into the mind to have a new idea. Aquarius is all about what's new, but it is within the air space. It's an air sign. So when Pluto is moving into Aquarius, we're going to feel it less on our bones and more in our minds. And we see that manifest in technology. We see that manifest in the way groups form, in the way that we create new ideology and the like. So Pluto's already stepped into Aquarius 2 times before now. So we've all had this taste of what the past has been, how we have fundamentally changed our Earth, the repercussions of that, the power that we can find within our relationship to the Earth, within the structure of our own bodies, which is our own bones. And with such a profound transmutation, which is a Pluto word, we shift what we can do with our minds now and the power that's held within our minds to reestablish the right definition of humanity. That's how I see it. Aquarius is all about what it is to be a human, what it is to be a part of something greater, what it is to be kind of unified in this experience. And to know where you belong, it often comes when you can't be where you belong anymore, or where you're experiencing some type of isolation, or experiencing a thought or an idea, a technology that is so radical that it takes a lot of time, or it causes massive cultural disruptions to actually integrate a new and helpful technology. This is what we're going to be dealing with for the next 20 years. And I say dealing with because I think we're all coming off this Pluto in Capricorn experience with a very strong feeling that it was something we had to deal with, instead of it being a very strong feeling that we were all so empowered. Empowerment only comes from our own inner decision to feel empowered. We cannot be given power externally. We have to decide to be empowered. Yes, we can be pushed into situations with or which catalyze our personal power, but Pluto is not necessarily an empowering planet. Pluto brings you through empowering experiences. And in Capricorn, these are empowering experiences about what reality means, what it means to have structural power, what it means to have generational power, what it means to have power within a family or power within a business, power within a government, all of these spaces. Aquarius shifts us into thinking again about the communities that we're a part of, the ideas that we are right on the edge of, and how it is best to bring those through. And I'm speaking as though there's a lot of free will going on here. Pluto transits are very often, they happen to us or they happen through us. And there's a metaphor that comes to mind all the time when I was thinking about the Pluto in Capricorn transit that we're coming out of now. It's one of two. I've mentioned one on my channel before, but this is the second one. The Pluto in Capricorn transit is like watching a freight train slam into a massive brick wall and like crumple up on itself, but you're watching it in super slow motion. So it's just like, it's just dismantling or just I don't know if that's the image. And I haven't really gotten that type of image yet for the Pluto and Aquarius transit, other than it being like we press a button in our brain and like allow ripple effects to kind of move out. But I'm sure that will develop in time. So where all this is going is to say that over the last 2 years, we've been on this cusp of stepping into the new Aquarius paradigm of finding ourselves in experiences where we need to reclaim personal power within communities, within ideologies, within the new changes that are happening in the technological world that is in front of us. We spent time there, and then we went back into the world that we have been in since 2008 when Pluto first came into Capricorn. And this is the world where we are literally transforming our bodies and our bones, and we're transforming our homes, and we're transforming our relationships to work, our relationships to what we are defining as our structure and how we are using space and time. These are all Capricorn things. It's a much more Pluto and Capricorn kept us with such more focus of an emphasis on this idea of work-life balance or traditional roles, sifting through these ideologies that we've kind of just been working with wholesale for decades now, and really questioning, does this align with how I find my own expression of who I am? Sometimes it does for people, but we were faced with experiences likely in the relationships that we felt were closest to our home, because Capricorn is the opposite of Cancer. Cancer is our home. Within evolutionary astrology, the opposite sign of wherever Pluto is transiting, the opposite sign is where you're going to be doing the emotional integration of the work that Pluto is doing. Again, within the EA, evolutionary astrology paradigm, you can only evolve evolutionary astrology. You can only change or let yourself change through the emotional body. You have to have the emotional experience. You have to let yourself go through the emotional rigmarole sometimes of what's going on in order to actually cement a change. You need to let yourself feel it. If you don't feel it, it becomes repressed. So since 2008, the polarity point has been Cancer. And we've been emotionally integrating everything literally at home. If not literally, then quite physically, we've been sitting at home dealing with stuff that has come up at work, dealing with stuff that has come up with spouses or partners, traditional gender roles, or even the government, right? Like the government's rights over your home, over your bodies, Cancer. There's just the list goes on and on. So on November 19th, I believe, Pluto will leave Capricorn for good. That's it. We're done. That's it. Um, the last two times that Pluto left Capricorn, there was incredible relief. There was an incredible lightness, of course, accompanied by different fears around technology and personal identity and other places that fear started to manifest. But what I felt, what I know many people felt, was an incredible lightness, potentialities about the future, where we were more focused on what is coming out of us, what edge of consciousness we are reaching in the Aquarian realms, instead of cleaning up the mess that we had at home, cleaning up the mess we had in our governments. And yet, even though we felt that relief when Pluto moved into Aquarius, the few times it did in the last 2 years, there was always something on the back of our minds. We're going back. We're going back. We're going back home, proverbially or literally. We're going back to deal with the government. We're going back. We have to go back. There's something left there for us. And we've been in this last period now. The unique time that we are in is that once we hit November 19th, Pluto will be in Aquarius and we will not be going back into Capricorn again. So if you have tried to make a change since 2023, I'm not saying everything's going to go smooth and it's going to happen wholesale on November 19th. But what I'm saying is we will not be going back into Capricorn again. We will not be collectively dealing with power struggles as they manifest in physical reality as much as we are and have been since 2008 now, till now. All of our collective focus will be shifted to, the Aquarian realms, our minds, and the edge of what we know to be true and to be helpful and to be important. What is true and helpful and important to us links us to a community. Aquarius links us to our tribe, if you will. It links us to the niche that allows us to be Leo, which is the opposite of Aquarius, which is where we'll be doing all of our emotional integration work over the next 20 years. So Leo is all about you. It's all about your radiance, your creativity. It's all about how you look. It's all about your personal creative unfolding. It is ruled by the sun. So this axis of Uranus Sun or Aquarius Leo is to do with detached mind, the logic of the matrix, the logic of God, and the logic of me, the logic of my identity, my solar identity in this life, my creative, what I want to give, what I want to, how I want to shine, what I want to, how I want to be seen. The more we are changing our ideas and our association to groups and um, changing technology, we are quite literally redefining what it means to be a human. And thus, we are also redefining what it means to be ourselves from a creative standpoint. And thus, from my perspective, we are also redefining what creativity itself means. Up until this point, well, there's slews of definition of creativity, okay? But I guess what I'm gesturing towards right now is that we don't know how creativity is going to be changed in the same way we didn't know how the home and the feminine and how we nurture ourselves was going to be changed in the sign of Cancer when Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008. We had some inklings because these problems don't just arise out of nowhere. Toxic masculinity didn't rise out of nowhere, right? But with the sun, instead of it being a lunar archetype, we're integrating a solar archetype. There's fire. Cancer's very emotional, very internal. Integrating Leo, integrating the fire is about let's be seen. Let's, that's where the work is going to be done. There's going to be incredible artwork, incredible power dynamics over artwork, you know, power dynamics over children, power dynamics over like it. The list really goes on and on. But I don't say this to scare anyone. It's to me it's incredibly exciting. But what I guess I'll just say for the last time to really cement here, and I'll share my own unknowing about it, is that we're not going back after November 19th. I think the best the best viewership I've gotten on any video on my channel so far, as I'm still growing, is on a video I made about Pluto going into Capricorn the last time and how we thought we would know, or like we thought we were going into the new, but we were going to be cast back into the old. And now I'm saying we're going into the new and we're staying in the new. But the irony is that last time, even though we were going back, no, nobody wanted to go back. It was like a chore to go back. It was like, oh my God, can't we just be in the new already? But now that as I run it through my body, it's like, yeah, we're not going back now. And guess what? I don't know what that looks like. Instead of us just having the idea, trying it a few times, trying it in this way, that way, the other way, we are full on committing to something here. But just like the train had to be seen in slow motion, this is also a slow motion process. So this isn't to say, like, Pluto is still going to go retrograde, but it's going to go back to like 1 degree of Aquarius and not move back into Capricorn. So we're still going to have periods of retracing steps that we've been in the Pluto paradigm, but we're not going back into Capricorn. We're staying in Aquarius. So I think this will be, there's so many other transits happening surrounding this that, signal other forwards and backwards spins, but and I will mention one of them in a moment because I think it's really very interesting. But Pluto is the baseline. Pluto is the baseline. So we will feel this. We will feel this. That's it. Like Pluto's ruler is no longer going to be Saturn. Pluto's ruler is going to be Uranus from here on out. And guess what? This is what I was going to say. Uranus is about to change signs in 2025 and in 2026. We're going to have 2 years of Uranus moving between Capricorn and Gemini. So it's going to be a very similar thing as what Pluto's been through in the last 2 years of going between one sign and another, feeling like we're in the new, and then going back, feeling like Uranus is going to do the same thing. It's going to step into Gemini for like only 2 months in 2025, going to go back to Taurus, and then by 2026, think it'll be fully in Gemini by the end of the year, I believe, or even earlier. But what that means, why it's significant, is because Uranus is the ruler of Pluto in Aquarius. So wherever Uranus goes, that's the rulership. So we look to that. In Taurus, Uranus has been all about the physical, sensual, survival body. It's been about our resources, money, um, the fertility of land, and how we can sustain ourselves. There's been profound changes and disruptions in the way that we've done that, in the way also that we see our own consciousness in our own liberation, because liberation is another Uranus word, how we see our consciousness and our liberation in our bodies. There's been a huge uptick in obviously like somatic healing in nervous system. The nervous system is an incredibly Uranus and Taurus signature, yeah. Like Uranus is electricity. It's the electricity of our bodies, understanding the intelligence of our physical bodies. When it goes into Gemini, we have the intelligence of words, the intelligence of the mind, the edge of our mind. We're truly going to be pushed to the edge of our mind. Not necessarily in a bad way, but in a tremendously forward pushing way. That's going to be the transit when the tech stuff starts to really ramp up, starting, I believe it's summer of 2025, and then definitely in 2026. We're going to have not only Pluto in an air sign, but its ruler, Uranus, in an air sign. So all of this is to say nothing's happening overnight. Yeah. But the changes are, we are approaching closer and closer to there no longer being this flip-flopping happening. This, like, when are we actually going to shift? Because we've been talking about shifting forever, it feels. We've been talking about being in a different phase of life for so long now, for even before Pluto stepped into Aquarius. So many people, pardon me, so many people were feeling the end once a planet gets to those final degrees of any sign, but especially the outer planets. Not to mention, Neptune is at the very final degrees of Pisces and will go into Aries next year. It will also flip-flop next year. So we still have flip-flopping happening, but the most fundamental baseline is no longer flip-flopping from November 19th. This is, I guess, what I mean to say here. But we can appreciate that there's even nuance to that. There's even nuance to this Pluto shift that's happening very soon. So the shift will happen on November 19th, which is just 2 days after a full moon, 2 days after the full moon in Taurus. So change is imminent here. But let me just go through the 3 times that Pluto's shifted, just to give you a sense of the timeline of this, so you might like consider what changes you've been trying to make since these times. So the first time that Pluto went into Aquarius was on March 23rd, or it might have been March 24th, depending on where you are in the world, but at the end of March in 2023. So what were you doing at the end of March of 2023? That's like the first time we made an attempt to shift into the new. The second time Pluto shifted into Aquarius was on the 20th of January of this year. So right when this year started, Pluto shifted back into Aquarius. So right at the beginning of this year, at the end of January, what were you doing? And how did your intention at the beginning, at the end of March of the year before go? So between March of 23, January of 24, what happened? Did you go for something and then did you have to go back and work on it again? And then in January of 2024, what were you doing? What was the plan? How did that go? And where are you like right now with it? Are you about to make somewhat similar of a move as you did in um, January? But are you doing it a little bit differently now? Because Pluto will never step over this threshold again. So just consider the timing. March of 23, maybe it was April of 2023, February of this year, and then let's say October of this year. Is there something you've been trying to do at each of those junctures? Have you failed or found yourself having to go back in some very profound way that's a little bit beyond you? It's a little bit thwarted, a little bit like, oh God, like very challenging, deeply challenging on a soul psychological level. And are you preparing to yet again try one more time? And then the final question is, how do you feel about this third try? I think that's all of what this lunar cycle is about this month, this new moon in Scorpio. Um, so that's what I have. Let me know what you think. And good luck. Good luck. Good luck with the transition. I'd love to hear from people about everyone's foray into the new. So bye for now.